Hey garden friends, welcome to the greenhouse here at Flower Patch. I am still working on some winter sowing. I will continue to do so. Each time I get another empty jug, I will winter sow until I have sowed everything that I want to sow in the cold winter time. Before we get going too far into this video, I want to say thank you for watching my channel, giving me those thumbs ups, and the comments you leave me. I get a lot of great ideas from you guys for what to produce next, what you need to know, what you want to know, or even ideas I haven't tried, which I would like to. So thank you for that. Also, if you haven't subscribed, please go ahead and hit the notification button, and you will know anytime and every time that I put up a new video. Today I am going to talk a little bit about some of the issues that people have talked about with their winter sowing, like they've not had success, and I want to relate a few things that maybe could be the problem. So as I sow, we will talk about that. How's that? So this is going to be, this is Monarda Bergamot Bouquet, Butterfly Monarda Renee's Garden Seeds. I'm going to do half of them winter sowing, and the other half I'm going to start a little bit later on my light shelves. Some of the issues that you could face is not enough drainage. So it could be that your plants drowned in your container if it doesn't drain well enough. So I always poke a lot of holes in it. I showed you how I did that. I do it here. I also have quite a few, at least 2.5, 3 inches of soil. If you are going to leave yours out until it's time to plant in your garden, you do want to give them a lot of space for the roots to grow. And you want to make sure you don't over sow, meaning put too many seeds in here. Now I'm going to attempt, these are teeny tiny seeds, to space these apart so they have a little bit of room, because I do not usually pot these up. I just put them right from the container here into the garden when it's time. Now for us, our last frost date is usually the end of May. So they've got to be in here quite a while. We may warm up later than a lot of other folks. Even though I'm zone 8, my garden season is shorter than others that are in the same zone. And that's just how it works. Zone only tells you what your lowest average temperature is in winter and what perennials may survive in your area, not when you cannot plant things. That's the misnomer I see a lot with new gardeners. They try to plant everything by garden zone. So I'm just sprinkling a little in there, and I make sure they have good contact. This is important. You need to press them into the soil. And I do not water ever from the top. And this may be an issue that people have. You could be, if you spray down in here, dislodging the seeds or upsetting the seedlings. Once you get them planted, or once you get them sown in here, set it into a tray of water or a tub of water. Let me see. Here's one. This is rainwater I captured. So I just stick it in here. I let it absorb. This potting soil is already very moist. But during the spring, as things are warming up, if there is condensation in here, there's plenty of moisture. If there is not, it's too dry. So if you notice that there's no condensation or very little condensation, then it's time to water. So how do you water? Again, put it in a tub or a tray of water, let it absorb. Probably half an hour to an hour is plenty, and then you remove it from the tray of water. It may sound fiddly, but I just set a timer. I've got to go out in the garden anyways during that time and check on things or do things. And so it's not hard. I usually use a bigger tub like this because I have several of them, or one of my these trays. It does not have any, this holds water. This doesn't have holes. So, or in one of that, and it absorbs the moisture it needs, and then it's fine. So then just keep checking it. Keep an eye on them. And that's how you do that. So you don't have to worry about trying to squirt it in there. Squirting in there is hard to do, but also to get enough moisture if it's really gotten dried out is hard. So letting it absorb from the bottom is perfect. So I need to write on this before I forget. Now also, like I said, maybe too many seeds, or when I usually plant, sorry, I keep starting over. I usually plant the cold hardy perennials and cold hardier cool annuals. Now there's, just know your growing conditions. And that means, when does it typically start to warm up in your region? How long from now until it starts to warm up? Like we typically can get snow in March and April. So I've got a long ways to go. Other people may start getting, you know, warmer temperatures. I know I have a friend in Oklahoma, and her last frost date's in early April. So, you know, it changes with your growing conditions. And she's a zone 7, so go figure. My last frost date's the end of May. So now there's a lot of things that I will winter sow. I choose things a lot of times that they will reseed themselves. Echinacea is one of them that will reseed itself in my garden, so that tells me it will live through the winter out there. Other things, daisies, black-eyed Susans, what is the little one? Feverfew, just so many things. I've got tansy now. I'm hoping it's reseeded, but I don't know yet, because this is the first year I've had it, so I'm not sure if it reseeded or not. So let me grab a rag. I got moisture all over my table. So anyways, choose things that are cold hardy to do in the winter. Now, when it comes closer to springtime and I do spring outdoor sowing in the same containers, that's not winter sowing, that's spring sowing in jugs. So it's just a little different in timing. That is when you can do your tomatoes and your basil. And I haven't been that successful with basil because it really likes it hot. Why I knew I could do tomatoes was because I have them starting to come up out in the garden where my plants were left over the winter, and the tomatoes that were left on it fell on the ground, and I had a bazillion sprouts. So I knew the tomatoes would work. I also have done zinnias and other warm weather things, but I have to wait until it's much warmer. And I've done those like April, and that's my conditions. Now, you may warm up sooner and be able to do them sooner in containers like this, but that's spring sowing, not necessarily winter sowing. It's spring sowing using the winter sowing method, but it technically is spring sowing because that's when you're sowing them. Now, I don't know if anybody's had success winter sowing those things, but I know I haven't. But as I said, we get some pretty cold winters. Okay. Monarda, burgundy bouquet. And like I said, I'm going to put these all in my garden journal and keep track of everything. Sometimes I'll make a copy of the seed packet front, and then I'll put it on the page of that, and I have all the information I can fill in, so I can tuck that package away and use the rest next year. And as I said before, I will also sow some of these a little bit later and put them on my light shelf in, am I crooked? Probably am. Light shelf in the house, but I only have limited space. Well, I have a whole rack, but I end up starting so many seeds. And that's what gets me through the winter, the dark days of winter, and I love it. Also, put these outside. I put them right on the ground or on my deck. Don't put them on concrete. Concrete can get super cold and can freeze them. I have said in the past, way in the past, not to put them up against a building. Like I have the greenhouse here, and that can block some of the rain and the snow from going down in the hole. And that's how it gets watered. But I did one last year or a couple years ago. I did a couple jugs, and I did a test, put them up against the greenhouse outside, and just made sure that they were getting plenty of water, and they did very well. So if you put them up against a building, just make sure it's not blocked from getting rain or snow down in the hole. You know what? I'm going to take you out and I'm going to show you some of my previous winter sowing jugs, if they're not too buried in the snow, and you'll see where I have them. That's just some snow falling out of the trees. Yes, we still have a lot of snow. In fact, you'll see it when we go check out my winter sowing jugs that are out there. All right. Well, I'm standing right here, and this raised bed is where they are all at. Well, most of them that I started the soonest, and they are buried in snow, which is good. I'll take you over. Let me gently move you. Stepping on snow, so if I'm a little jittery. Over here, next to the arbor, behind there, you can see a jug. Let me walk over there. So down there, I just put that one out, and that's fine there. It hasn't gotten snowed on. And then I have one sitting over there. So that's what's going on right now. The one that I have inside, I will stick out here somewhere where it's close by and I can keep an eye on it. So down here, I might dig out a little bit of snow beside this climbing rose and sink it down into this area. I'm trying to think of what else, other things that people might have done that could have made it harder for the winter sowing to work. Could have been the seeds. So we covered the seed. What kind of seeds, if they were old seeds? Now, I've said before that dollar store seeds have done beautifully for me, so it wouldn't be that. I use potting soil. I do not use seed starting mix, and here's the reason. One of the reasons. It's always worked for me with seed starting, but this one has a little bit of nutrition. You are going to leave these in your containers until they're ready to go out into the garden, or it's time. They need something other than seed starting mix has no nutritional value. When they need it, this has something that they can draw from to feed them. This has like worm castings in it and bat guano and stuff. Seeds do not need that to get started, but the seedlings will after a short while, and they will need it to survive and thrive. So that's a ticket too. Could have been the potting soil. All right, I know I'm all over the place with this information, but I try to think of everything that could possibly go wrong. Also, another thing, the clear containers. You see, this is not clear. A lot of times I use the milk jugs that are opaque, not clear. When the sun starts to shine, plants can cook in the clear containers faster than the opaque. The opaque diffuses the sunlight and makes it a little bit less intense. So that's another thing if you're using clear containers or containers that are not deep enough. So our winter sowing issues. First of all, we covered the lack of drainage. That can be a big issue because your seedlings will drown. 2, let's see, not enough soil depth. The depth of the soil is important because if you're going to leave your seedlings in there until planting them out in late spring, early summer, depending on when you're going to plant them out, they need room for them roots to grow. 3, not firming your seeds into your soil. Getting that firm contact between the soil and the seed is very important. Whether you're winter sowing, sowing out in the garden, etc. When plants drop their seeds, the rain and snow work them down into the soil. So we need to do that for them if we're seeding. Watering improperly. If you're watering from the top, you're either not watering enough or you're dislodging seeds or the seedlings with the spray of water. Water from the bottom. Over sowing too many seeds. They'll get crowded. I leave mine typically in the containers, the jugs, until I'm going to plant them out in the garden. And sometimes the plants can get pretty big. So they need some space. Sowing the wrong seeds. Now, if you're winter sowing, you want seeds that will thrive in the cooler temperatures. and that some of them need vernalization and or stratification. And those two terms are close. Vernalization, some seeds to bloom, they need that cold. Some to germinate need the damp cold, which that's stratification. All right, number 7, placing your containers in the wrong spot. They need to be able to get rain and snow, and or you need to supplement watering. Like I spoke about having them up against my greenhouse, I supplemented watering because they didn't always catch it from the sky. 8, wrong potting soil. I don't use seed starting mix. It has no nutritional value. My seeds, my plants stay in these containers for a long time, and they will need that extra oomph that seed starting mix does not provide. So a good potting soil is essential. Okay, 9, letting your seedlings get too hot. You've got to, when it starts warming up, you've got to pay attention to them, open them up, let them get aired out, move them to an afternoon shady spot, or somehow provide shade if it's too hot for them. Also, this is a good time to really watch the watering, because when you open it up and it's hotter, they will dry out much faster. Not feeding them when it's needed. As I said, I leave mine in there for a very long time, and even with the good potting soil, the nutrients will get used up by the seedlings. So if they're in there more than a couple months, I will start feeding them when I notice. I mean, you can even see through the translucent containers how big the seedlings are getting. So once they're getting a couple inches high, I will give them a diluted organic fertilizer. I have a liquid one that I love because it not only feeds the plant, it feeds the soil, and that's important in my gardening. So that's the 10 issues you may face when winter sowing and how you can correct it and enjoy this wonderful type of seed starting that can be just so easy and a great way to get a lot of plants, perennials and annuals, in your garden for a super inexpensive price. All right, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a thumbs up if you found it helpful, and or subscribe to my channel, and you can see what I've got coming next.